How's it going, home theater fans? My name is Todd Anderson, editor at avnirvana.com, and welcome to our discussion of DefTech's brand new Dymension Series speakers. Recently, I was given an opportunity to head out to Massimo Consumer's headquarters as part of a media event that was held in Southern California. What a fantastic place it is, loaded with sound rooms and, of course, crawling with engineers and all sorts of folks who are involved with companies like Denon and Marantz, and of course, DefTech. The main focus of the trip was to give us hands-on experience with Denon's A1H receiver, Marantz's new AV10 and AMP10 separates, and of course, DefTech's entire range of new Dymension speakers. During the event, I had access to key members of DefTech's team who detailed engineering aspects and design principles behind the speakers. Was also given a chance to hear the speakers in action in a variety of sound rooms that are in Massimo Consumer's headquarters. And these are rooms that are typically used for product development and training sessions. Of course, in this particular occasion, they were loaded up with Dymension Series speakers and a variety of Denon and Marantz gear. And these rooms ranged in size from both large and small stereo listening rooms and also a small home theater setting, something that you might find in your living room, and then a true dedicated large Dolby Atmos home theater room. DefTech says this is going to be a big year for new product launches, and they are starting things off with a bang. This Dymension series is a direct replacement of the older 9000 series, and they do share some commonalities, including a bipolar design. There are 9 models in all, headlined by the flagship DM80 floor stander, which has 3 smaller siblings, the DM70, DM60, and the DM40. There's also 3 center channel models, anchored by the beastly DM30 that features an active subwoofer section. And to please Atmos fans, there's the DM90 integrated Atmos module that easily snaps into place on top of a DM80 or DM70 tower. And there's also the DM95 on-wall height surround speaker. Let's start off by talking about the tower speakers, which feature either an 8-inch, a 10-inch, or a 12-inch active subwoofer built right into the speaker. Now, this gives customers quite a bit of flexibility. Number one, it means that you don't necessarily have to have large external subwoofers in your room. That also means you're cutting down on long cable runs. And of course, it gives you the added benefit of having a multi-sub deployment in your room. As you can tell, there's not a lot of depth for these drivers to operate in due to the narrow nature of the Dymension series cabinetry. So rather than increase volume by using a port, DefTech has incorporated dual opposed, dual suspension base radiators that are positioned below the active base driver. This gives the speaker 3 times the radiating area for deeper, more expansive bass. These radiators are actually coupled internally, separated by a thin foam pad. Now, this has several advantages, one being it gives the cabinet a lot more rigidity, but it also fosters an omnidirectional radiating pattern of sound. Now, because these subsections are active, that means an amplifier needs to be on board in the speaker to drive them. The amp section in the flagship model is a little bit different than the amp sections in the other 3 tower speakers. That's because it benefits from GaNFET technology, which reduces heat and distortion while possessing the ability to push 415 watts of continuous power. The other towers draw 180 watts continuous thanks to Class D MOSFET design with onboard DSP. Of course, none of this matters if the subsection doesn't blend well with the mid-range driver, and DefTech has changed things up this year by making that happen through incorporating what it calls intelligent bass control. Taking a peek around the back side, you can see that each speaker has a notched knob with 31 different settings. That is the intelligent bass control. Here you can attenuate bass with precision. The typical gain knob that you see on an active speaker does increase bass output, but it also can inject an unnatural boost in the 100 to 200 hertz range. Intelligent bass control stops that from happening by adjusting the DSP for every driver in the speaker, and it keeps that bump from occurring in that 100 to 200 hertz range. On the high frequency front, DefTech is using a new version of its aluminum oxide tweeter, and that's outfitted with a newly designed waveguide. Those are paired with a mid-range driver with a linear response waveguide that smooths out upper mid-range frequencies and increases output in the 5 to 10 kilohertz range. Of course, what makes this speaker really interesting is its unique bipolar design. Bipolar, you say? What does bipolar mean? Well, that means the speaker has a forward-firing array consisting of a tweeter and 2 mid-range drivers, but that array is complemented by a rear-firing array consisting of the same exact layout. The result is an entirely unique audio experience that's crafted by sound that's directly reflected off the wall that runs across the front of your room. Now, something to consider when you're thinking about bipolar speakers is how far away from a wall you can have them positioned. DefTech is recommending at least 18 to 24 inches to get the best bipolar effect. If that scares you away, don't let it, because DefTech's engineers have installed a little switch on the back of the speakers that allows you to attenuate output on those rear drivers by 6 decibels, so you can push these speakers back a little bit closer to the wall. And if you opt to purchase the large flagship model, there are hookups for a second amp to drive the rear array for continuously variable adjustments. On the center channel front, the DM10 and DM20 are passive designs. In the case of the DM10, this is designed to be placed on the cabinet, and the DM20 is wall mountable. Then there's the beastly DM30, which houses an up-firing 8-inch powered subdriver. That's right, this is an active center channel speaker, which is really cool. Now that 8-inch driver is flanked by passive radiators. If that reminds you of what you're finding in the lower section of the tower speakers, you are correct. Very similar design intent. Now this section is also managed by user selectable intelligent bass control. So you can really dial in this speaker for the perfect marriage between its subsection and its array of passive, mid, and high frequency drivers. I have to admit, when I first saw the DM30, I was really surprised by its size. And this thing is a big beast. And not surprisingly, what comes along with that size? Weight. I went to pick this thing up. It weighs 55 pounds. That is a lot for a center channel. And it really pays off because it sounds great. Now, last but not least, let's not forget about DefTech's DM90 Atmos module and the DM95 wall mountable Atmos speaker. If you want an Atmos-like experience, but you aren't interested in running speaker wire up your walls or into your ceiling, you can use the DM90 and snap it right on top of the Series 2 largest towers. You can see right there, there's a removable cap on those speakers. So you pop that cap off and you simply snap the DM90 into place. It locks, and that's it. It totally eliminates the need for any additional speaker wire and makes for a really clean appearance. Now, build and appearance-wise, there's no mistaking these speakers as DefTech speakers. I mean, they actually look a lot like the older 9000 series with narrow cabinets and squared-off corners. And having seen this Dymension series deployed in both 2-channel and home theater environments, I can say I found them very easy on the eyes, and they are totally capable of disappearing when the lights are turned off. So we know these speakers are loaded up with all sorts of interesting technologies. The big question is, how do they sound? I was able to hear the DM80 and DM70 towers deployed in stereo configurations in a really large listening room. We're talking 18 feet wide, 26 feet deep, super tall ceilings. And these speakers were able to really dish out the bass, and it punched deep and hard with lots of accuracy. It was a total treat to hear. We listened to a variety of tunes during demo sessions, including tracks from Led Zeppelin, Kalo, Ghost Hunter, and so many more. And it's no exaggeration to say these speakers sounded like they were paired with extremely large external subwoofers. They just filled the room with lots of bass. In terms of their bipolar design, I was able to hear both speakers in action with their bipolar arrays going full speed ahead and also with the rear array attenuated by 6 decibels. Now it's really interesting because the bipolar design creates this very diffuse sound field. It's totally interesting. It may not be for everybody, but for somebody who's looking for a sound field that blooms and has a lot of height and width, this is going to give it to you. Now, when the speaker is attenuated, it gives a much more forward, standard sounding stereo sound, which I think I actually preferred myself. But what's interesting about these speakers, it gives you a choice. You can pull them out away from your walls, engage the full bipolar array, and experience something that normal stereo speakers just can't give you. Of course, you can also kind of shut down that backside, put them a little back towards the wall if you choose. You can also keep them out and you can really get that traditional stereo sound. The big takeaway for me though was the low end drivers on the DM80 and the DM70. They proved to be totally legit. They can handle the demands of bass heavy music at very loud volumes without losing detail or resolution. The DM80s also performed exceptionally well in a large room home theater environment. Here you can see them deployed in a gorgeous reference grade home theater setting. This is where DefTech's team put on a spectacular show. And just to give you an idea of what kind of equipment they were using in this room, they had the DM80s as your front, left, and right channels. DM40s were serving as wides. DM70s were positioned as side and rear surrounds. And they had 6 DM95s deployed as height channels, and the DM30, that massive DM30 center channel with the active subsection, well, that was tasked with handling center channel duties. One thing I found interesting about the DM30 is DefTech says it's not voiced to go behind an acoustically transparent screen. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're planning to deploy this speaker in your home theater room, it needs to be sitting out in front of your screen, not behind it. Now, in terms of performance, the DM30 is a really great speaker. Its performance, as I heard it, was spectacular. It delivers natural sounding dialogue. It really mated well with the DM80s that were flanking it. And of course, the speakers in the rest of the room, they also came to life and punched hard with a vibrancy. And it's worth noting, folks, that in this particular demo session, there were no external subs. It was just the tower speakers driving the show, and they did a great job. Now, that isn't to say that I don't like external subwoofers, because you know I totally love them. And my favorite demo session of my entire visit there came on a day when they brought in 4 external subs to reside in that room, and wow, that system sounded spectacular. The dynamic nature of various clips that we heard in that configuration were extremely compelling. It was a great sounding system. There's little doubt this new Dymension series will give fans of bipolar sound, particularly when it comes to 2-channel music, plenty to chew on. And for those of you looking for a cinematic home theater experience, these speakers can give that to you in spades. Now, before we go, I just want to show you a couple photos from within the halls of Massimo Consumer's headquarters and give you a look at some of the sound rooms in a little bit more detail. One thing that I thought was really cool about this facility is that every sound room is named after a large music festival. You have the Coachella room, you have the Lollapalooza room, and so on and so forth. Just walking around, you can get a sense of the history of some of the products that have rolled through there, some of the ears that have come to visit the facility, to hear things in action. It's just a really spectacular environment. I want to say thank you to all the folks at Denon, Marantz, Definitive Technology for having me out there to hear their gear in action. It was a great time. All right, folks, that's all I have for you right now. If you'd like to learn more about the Dymension series of speakers, there's a link right down in the description below that will take you over to definitivetechnology.com. And of course, If you are a fan of home theater, 2-channel stereo, if you want to talk shop about the Dymension series of speakers, head on over to our forum at avnirvana.com. We'll see you there.